Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, family, friends, wherever you are this evening. I'm Michael C. Hardy. Welcome to my library. If you get a chance, let us know where you're watching from. I would love to say hi to you this evening. Once again, it's been an exciting week here in the Hardy household. We were at North Carolina National History Day yesterday, working with middle school and high school students, and that was fabulous to see all of their different projects and to chat with some of those, to chat with fellow judges. That was just an absolutely incredible time. We'll put a couple of announcements up, really easy, simple things. I'm not actually traveling any place this week to do any programs. We'll be in Raleigh on Wednesday, but that's my other job related. Next week, after that, on Monday night, I will be at the Rappahannock Civil War Roundtable in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And then the week after that, I will be speaking to the SCV camps in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Christiansburg, Virginia. So if you're out and about, come check us out and we'll get together and we will chat. Once again, you can pre-order copies of Western North Carolina, East Tennessee, and the American Revolution. Go to michaelchardy.com and I may have books by the end of the week. I ordered them on Thursday a week ago, and they said 2 to 3 weeks. And so 2 weeks will be this Thursday. Of course, you will know it if you follow me along on social media as soon as they come in, and we will start working really hard on packaging those books up, and we will get them out. And if you didn't see the announcement earlier, I know 2 or 3 of you have helped me try to find an affordable copy of Sons of a Trackless Forest, and I found one. It was not a steal. I got a good deal, but it was not a steal. If you go on ABE Books or Amazon or eBay, copies of this book sell from anywhere from $400 to $1,400. And I've always wanted one and found one. So it's a really big book. It's literally almost 1,000 pages. You don't have to look for one anymore, but if you find one for $5, trust me, you can make some good money reselling that book. Hope everybody is doing really well. It's good to see Johnny and David and Bobby Joe out in Arkansas, and Al over in Tennessee, and Jason up in Virginia. Thanks, everybody, for joining me this evening. So I have a special guest this evening. I know when y'all love when I bring special guests on, you don't have to listen to me sit here and ramble about books and history and other things. But I would like everybody to make welcome my friend Jason. Jason Boshers lives over in Tennessee. Jason, there was a button on here at one time that allowed me to clap. Oh, right there. Great to have Jason on with me this evening. Hope you're doing really well. We were chatting a little earlier about how great the weather is right now, and I hope the weather is great where everybody else is this evening. But Jason, y'all looked really good yesterday, rededicating monuments and just doing the history thing.
Yes, sir. Yesterday was a very special day. Yeah. Anytime that you get to erect and dedicate a monument, it's a moment in time. It is a piece of history. And yesterday, history was made.
That's fantastic. Yes, fantastic. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that here in a couple of minutes. Jason and I have talked back and forth for some time now about Memphis, Tennessee, and about some of the history they have lost. I wrote a series on the blog, I guess last winter or something, maybe the winter before, about Memphis in the Civil War and a lot of the activities that took place in the United Confederate Veterans Reunion that took place in Memphis. But like any big city or sometimes even small towns, a lot of things get lost. I wish, and I'm sure Jason wishes too, that we could save every historic building known to man. I actually was looking at pictures of the old Union Station in Memphis before we got started. Just an incredible L&N ran in there. The Southern Railroad ran in there, and a bunch of other railroads. And that building's now gone. And there's been VA hospitals that were in Memphis that are gone, and just tons of other things. But for a few minutes tonight, we're going to talk about a few of those things in Memphis that could have been lost, but we managed to save in some form or fashion. So Jason, if you want to run away with it for a few minutes, and then I'll tag on to the very end.
Oh, yes, sir. If a question pops into your head, just jump in and ask.
Yep, anytime.
Yes, sir. Well, if you want to, we'll start with the World War I monument.
That's great.
It was originally dedicated July 4th of 1923 in Confederate Park in Memphis, which was right there on the Chickasaw Bluff. Mm-hmm. And in time, things ended up growing into Confederate Park. One of them was the Mathis bust, and that was of a Captain Mathis. And when everything started coming out on December the 17th of 2018, the Mathis bust was given to the Mathis family descendants.
Right.
And so that was saved. That was given to the Mathis family descendants. Jeff Davis statue and monument that was there. It was not in Jeff Davis Park. It was in Confederate Park. It was originally slated to be put in Jeff Davis Park in 1964, which would have been the centennial of the war. And they, for some reason, decided to put it in Confederate Park. And that was brought to our general headquarters, and it was dedicated October the 3rd of 2020. And where it was placed, part of it's right. If you've seen it, it has the steps that are coming up, and those steps actually they didn't jackhammer out the sidewalk, so they just put it on standard sidewalk, which is only 4 inches. And we noticed back in the fall that when you faced President Davis, he was leaning a little to the left, and we noticed that it seemed to correct itself a little bit over the winter. But we found out that what it was doing was the sidewalk was starting to shrink or cave in. Mm-hmm. And we had some people there, and they go, "Hey, look, you run a risk of these blocks that are around it, the granite blocks and all that, starting to crack." He called it popping. He said, "What it'll do, it'll pop."
Right.
And, right. Okay, so we don't want that to happen. And they told us that we needed to take it down. And so we do have it down, and I'll go ahead and jump aside. On Friday, I put up on a Friday. We put up the World War I monument. On April the 13th, we dug the footer for it. It is a 12 by 12 pad, 12 inches deep, 2 layers of rebar all the way around, and we put a flagpole in the back, and in the flagpole it's 3 by 3 by 3, and we poured that pad on Tuesday the 14th. And on the 17th, we put up the World War I monument. It came down on, like I said, December 17th of 2018. Mm-hmm. It arrived on our property February the 11th of 2020. It was unloaded and put into storage the next day because it come late in the day when it got there very late. And we had to get there to unload it because it's a very heavy object. The stone that comes up is 12 inches deep and nearly 6 foot tall. So that's about 3,000 pounds. So we had to get the equipment there the next day to get unloaded, and it went into storage. And on Friday, April 17th, about 8:15, it come out of storage, and it saw light again. By 11 o'clock, it was upright. And it was, then I had to wait a few days before we could clean it because it's mortared on the bottom to make sure everything stays together. And they said, no, you need to let the mortar set. So we let the mortar set for 5 days, and then we cleaned it. And and then the next Friday, I took down Jeff Davis. We took down Jeff Davis. But I have never taken a monument down, and I never want to do that again. Right. That is the most sickening feeling that I have ever had, to see Jeff Davis come off the top of that, to see the crane hooked to him. And we had to do it. And we're going to put it back up. There's no doubt about that. But to see the crane hooked to it and taken off, it just breaks your heart. Mm-hmm. And we found out that he weighs 500 pounds. Well, they were telling us he weighed about 1,500. And so we were going to put him, we have a porch that face east, and we were going to put him under that porch so people could see him. But at 500 pounds, and you notice how he's posed with his arm out. And we were afraid somebody would, can you see a 6 or 7 year old kid coming up and grabbing a hold of the arm and pulling him over, because he's on a small base. And we'll go, okay, we have him in storage. We've already had him GPSed, and we've already had him cleaned and waxed, but we're going to take this opportunity to go over him very good again and make sure that when it comes time, he's going to be ready to go back up.
So when Jason says we're talking about the Sons of Confederate Veterans National Museum in Columbia, Tennessee.
Yes. Yes, sir. Thank you for clarifying.
That's okay. Great facility. I was there last year in September, and tons of great artifacts and displays. But when Jason says when talking about Sons of Confederate Veterans and the National Museum there, Elton Springs Historic Home is also on the property. Yes. So just to clarify that for anybody who comes in later and sees this, that's what we talk about, what we mean when we say we are there or headquarters or.
Yes. And thank you for clarifying. But it's, so we have him in storage, but when they took he was 500, and he had a cap that he sat on that weighs 3,100 pounds. And I was surprised that it weighed that much. But when we wanted to move the main obelisk, it was 14,000 pounds, 7 tons. Right. And to get it off, to see it lean and go, my stomach got in a knot to see that happen. Right. And I don't ever want to take another one down again. That's putting one up was wonderful. I'll go ahead and tell you, putting the World War I monument up, to put your shoulder to it and help guide it into place and help hold it while they put wedges in and get it level and flat and square. That makes you feel good. That puts a smile on my face. And yes, sir. Then we dedicated it yesterday, the World War I monument. That is on, to clarify, that is at the Southern Heritage Center. And on the Southern Heritage Center, it's the 80 acres that we have there, the Sons of Confederate Veterans. And if you're a member of the Sons of Confederate Veterans, this is your headquarters. And we have Elm Springs, historic home that started construction in 1835, finished in 1837. And for a long time, we had Sons of Confederate Veterans bought that property in 1992. And for a long time, until we opened the museum, our headquarters was inside the house. The offices were in there. Executive director, office manager, all the offices were in there. Now that they're moved over to the museum, we're putting Elm Springs back to an 1840s home. And so that means we're taking out the modern bathrooms, that kind of deal. We're going to be taking out closets, which we've already done. I've put some videos out there on Facebook about that. And but we dedicated, that was some of the history that was lost in Memphis that the Sons of Confederate Veterans, we were able to save. Tell
us a little bit more about the monument. Tell us a little bit more about the World War I monument.
Oh, I'd be more than happy to.
Yeah.
It was actually put up by the Shelby County Medical Society. And as I said, it was July 4th of 1923. And there were 4 men that were on there that are from Memphis and Shelby County. 3 of them are descendants of Confederates. One of them is a descendant of a Federal. And the wording on it, it to me is very humbling because it ends up quoting John 15:13 at the end. And it's to the memory of the 4 members of the Memphis and Shelby County Medical Society. These men were surgeons, and they actually died treating men. And I can tell you a little bit about that if you were like, because one time they were in the hospital and they were treating, and the Germans shelled the what we would call a mass unit. They shelled it and ended up killing him. Actually killed 7 total. Shelby County Medical Society, who gave their lives in service of their fellow men in the World War. And these 4 men are Captain Robert B. Underwood, Lieutenant Abner Potts Sage, Lieutenant Grover Carter, and Lieutenant Norwin B. Norris. And it finishes up at the bottom of the plaque that is on there. Greater love hath no man than this, than a man laid down his life for his friends. And that's quoting John 15:13. So this was put up by the Shelby County Medical Society. It is now pretty much called the Memphis Medical Society. So it still exists, but it's under the umbrella of the Memphis Medical Society, which is under the umbrella of the Tennessee Medical Society. And Captain Underwood, he was, volunteered his service and served on the border during the trouble between the United States and Mexico. So he was actually in the Mexican War as well. After that war, when the war was declared against Germany, he again entered the service and was made assistant chief surgeon at Camp Sevier while the 13th Division was training there. He went with his division to France and was placed in charge of the 118th Field Hospital.
Okay.
He was born in Iowa in 1880. He is interred in the Sommet American Cemetery in France, and he is the descendant of the Federal officer.
Okay.
And he was his Federal soldier served in the 12th Iowa Infantry, and he was serving during combat, and he was with the men, and he got shot and killed. And it was just a letter sent home to his sister. And he actually died of pneumonia. He was shot in the lungs, and he actually died of pneumonia. So another one was Lieutenant Abner Potts Sage. He was a first lieutenant in the United States Army Medical Corps, and he died May the 30th from wounds received in action on the battlefront in France. And he was one that was killed. He wrote of his sister. He wrote a letter to his sister before all this happened, and he told her where he was, that he was in a field hospital and that he was working there. And his Confederate ancestor was William Wallace Sage, and he served as a private in Company H, 9th Mississippi Infantry. So we had one that was shot and wounded, and this one was killed as well in combat. They didn't have a weapon. They were tending to the men that had been wounded, and this means they were on the battlefield. Yes. Then we had Lieutenant Grover Carter. He died at the post of duty near the battle line, according to the word received by his brother. And he actually received an award for heroism. And he was the one that actually got shelled. But there is one that I want to talk about, and that's Lieutenant Norwin B. Norris. We have all heard of the battleship, the Ticonderoga. It turns out that there were several of these. The first one in 1917 was a ship that the U.S. had captured, and they made it at the USS Ticonderoga, and it got torpedoed. So he died there. It was a German U-52 torpedoed the Ticonderoga, resulting in 2 Americans captured by the Germans, 23 rescued, and 230 lives lost, including Norris. So we had one of them that the ship he was on. So, that's the history of these men. And David Polk, there was another Ticonderoga. There was one that was during World War II and after. That was, but this one was an earlier version of this. That was a captured French ship, if I believe I remember correctly on that.
We tend to use names over and over again.
Yes.
When it comes to naval vessels.
When I read about it, I think there's 3 generations of the Ticonderoga.
Right.
Yes, there's 3 generations of it. Then we had also in Confederate Park, there were some artillery pieces. We were able to get 2 of those artillery pieces. Mm-hmm. They're on display at the General Headquarters of Sons of Confederate Veterans. They just recently got painted. They're in the circle where the battle flag is. There's a couple of things that I don't know where they are.
Right.
There was a copy of the 10 Commandments on stone tablets.
Right.
I don't know what happened to them. That's a piece of lost history.
Right.
And there were, what I'm told, and I remember from going through there were these historical signs and markers. I don't know what happened to them. And I can think of 5 of those. So I think there's 2 more artillery pieces out there somewhere. And I don't know where they are. The 10 Commandments, don't know where they are. They didn't come to us. What has come to us, we have put out for people to see, which was the Jeff Davis statue monument, the World War I monument, and then in Forest Park was the bodies of Nathan Bedford Forrest and his wife, Marianne Montgomery Forrest. Mm-hmm. And we'll be putting that entire plaza up. We have everything we need for that. Everything that was there in Memphis, we have.
All right.
So we'll be putting that back up. And we're in the process to let everybody know where we are in that process. We have all of the drawings needed, the architectural drawings, the construction drawings, and now we have the civil drawings, because we brought in ground penetrating radar because we're going to be moving all of that dirt. And we found 4 graves outside the old cemetery there. Now, that old cemetery wall was put up in 1980. A lot of people think it's a lot older than that. It was not.
So this is the cemetery at Elm Springs there in Columbia. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This is on the General Headquarters.
Yes.
And and when we brought in the ground penetrating radar, because we're moving all of that dirt, we found 4 graves. So we brought the surveyors back in, and we wanted those graves GPS'd. We have no idea who they are. No idea. And we did find an infant. The grave is right at 3 feet long. Mm-hmm. So we got the head and the feet marked on that. So what we have been given, we being the Sons of Confederate Veterans, we already have Jeff Davis up. We already have World War I monument up. Then we'll be putting the Forest Plaza up. But we do know that those 3 parks that were in Memphis, you had Confederate Park, you had Jeff Davis Park, and you had Forest Park. And there are some things that, like I said, with the cannons and the 10 Commandments and the 5 historical markers, I do not know. I'm sure they're out there somewhere, but they haven't come to us.
I understand. And maybe one day they will. We can always hope that maybe one day somebody will step in and say some organization, whether it be, a local historical society or the Sons of Confederate Veterans or the State Museum, or somebody needs these items. And that's a real challenge, to get these things and to get them preserved, because there are a lot of people who do care and do want to see these pieces on display. Not everybody, and that's okay, but a lot of people want to see that. I want to talk. Jason, do you have anything else on your list?
No, sir. I'm here to visit with you.
Awesome. I want to talk about one more piece of Memphis's history, and that's of a particular World War II airplane called the Memphis Belle. And I got to do a little research in this. Wrote a book a couple of years ago about aviation in North Carolina. And the pilot of the Memphis Belle, Robert Morgan, was from Asheville. He's actually buried near Asheville as well. But that led me down this path of doing a little bit of research into that particular bomber during World War II. And very famous airplane. Was one of the first to complete 25 bombing missions during World War II. There are a couple of others that are in contention for that first spot. And at that point, early on in World War II, when you got 25 missions completed as a crew, you got to come home. And since, the Memphis Belle, and they later expanded that, you had to do more missions to be able to come home. But at that point, early in the war, there were 25 missions, and they flew, Robert Morgan flew the Memphis Belle back to the States, and they went on tour selling war bonds. They flew, I think there were 31 different spots they landed at. A lot of newspaper publicity, radio publicity, encouraging people to go out and buy war bonds to help support the war effort. Tying that back in just a little bit to North Carolina, they visited the Asheville-Hendersonville airport, and let's see if I can get this to work. When Robert Morgan and his crew were leaving the Asheville-Hendersonville airport, they decided to fly right through the town of Asheville, the city of Asheville, and he literally took that B-17 bomber and put it at a 60-degree angle and flew right between those two buildings in downtown Asheville. He talks about that in his autobiography, and that's the building. One of they're both government buildings, but one of them actually housed part of the Weather Bureau for the U.S. Army. And there was Robert Morgan was only a captain at the time period, and there was a colonel in there, and that colonel spilled his coffee when that B-17 literally came by his window, and he wanted to have Morgan court-martialed from the Army, and he's on the horn talking to people about to get Morgan out, and they basically said the President of the United States authorized this, and so the matter dropped right there. So I didn't know if you knew that little story or not. That's just I would love to have seen that, that B-17 going in between those two buildings.
That's a big bird too. The B-17.
That's a really big bird to do that. That's and Morgan talks about it in his autobiography, which I will encourage people to read. It's not for younger folks because Captain Morgan was a ladies' man, and talks about that in there a little bit. But for your older, more mature readers, it's fascinating. So one of the things, so after World War II, the Memphis Belle just kind of hangs out just a little bit, and it was actually named kind of for one of Morgan's girlfriends, and she was from Memphis, and they decided to name the plane Memphis Belle. There's a bigger backstory behind that, but the U.S. Army this would have been the U.S. Army Air Force in right after the war was over, literally bought that airplane for $350. The city of Memphis bought it for $350. That in today's money is about $6,500. You could buy a B-17 for $6,500. So I would probably have one. I don't know what I would do with it, but I'd probably have one. That's cheaper than an artillery piece is these days. So I would probably have it. It goes on display at the National Guard Armory near the fairgrounds. It's outdoors into the 1980s, and a lot of vandalism to the airplane. And some people are like, we need to do something about this. And there's a organization called the Memphis Belle Memorial Association that is created, and they move it to Mud Island, where it's put on display, but it's got a large like tent over the top of it, a pavilion type thing, but it's still exposed to the elements. And eventually the city of Memphis gives it back to the United States Air Force. And in the Air Force says, y'all need to get out there and do something with this and preserve this historic aircraft. And finally, in 2004, it's been disassembled. It's supposed to be being worked on. Nothing is really happening. And in 2004, the Air Force steps in and says, we're going to take possession of the airplane back. And it is moved to the National Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio, where it has been restored. I've not seen it since it's gone on display yet. The Air Force Museum in Dayton is one of my favorite museums. If you ever get up there, you need 2 days.
Okay.
To look through. They've got 5 hangars of incredible aircraft. I mean, it is just incredible. It's one of my favorite museums because of all of the historic aircraft they have, like the Memphis Belle. But it's been restored and it's now on display. And I encourage folks to go to Columbia, Tennessee, and check out the Sons of Confederate Veterans Museum. I encourage you to go to Dayton and check out the National Museum of the Air Force. It's just a really fabulous museum. And I am glad that there are organizations like the Sons of Confederate Veterans, like the United States Air Force Museum, that will step in and save these things. There are people in Memphis who did not want to see the Memphis Belle gone. There are people in Memphis who did not want to see General Forrest reinterred and the World War I monument come down. We know those people, we talk to those people. But as I said, I'm grateful that there are organizations out there that will step in when a place decides that it no longer wants pieces of its history, and will preserve those. That's really an important thing, to preserve those pieces of the past for future generations. There's a lot of the other, I was looking through a list earlier of a lot of the other airplanes that were in contention to be that number one plane that completed under those 25 missions. That includes the Susie Q, that includes Hot Stuffs, that includes Hell's Angels, and pretty much all those airplanes are gone. They either crashed or they were scrapped after the end of the war. And Elizabeth, who of course is sitting over here making sure we don't stray too far, the Memphis Belle actually had this really cool movie shot about it in 1944. There was a videographer who flew around on the Memphis Belle during some of those combat missions. They actually were shot while it was still overseas, and flew around on some of those combat missions with the crew as they are dropping bombs there in Europe. And then, of course, they get another movie in 1988, I think it was, about the Memphis Belle. So it's amazing how much media plays a role in inspiring people to dig deeper about the past. I was heavily into reenacting when the movie Gettysburg came out. I think also in the early 90s, 92 or 93, someplace in there. And we just had a ton of people that wanted to come join our reenacting organization because they had seen that movie. I think a lot of times the media plays a huge role, good role and bad role, in doing, trying to preserve the past and getting people interested. And that's why I do this here on Sunday nights, is to maybe encourage people, um, to chat and to dig deeper and to ask questions. I saw somebody, was it Jason Lloyd, posted a little earlier, one of your, medical officers, who were killed in on that monument. He was probably down there chasing Pancho Villa
Mm-hmm.
with
Yes.
Pershing and some of those others, not to confuse the Mexican War with the one in the 1840s.
Yes.
He's probably on the border of the United States and Mexico chasing Pancho Villa, which is a fascinating story as well. I've never actually read anything about Pancho Villa. So if you have a book recommendation, not like I need any more books, but drop one in the box. I would love to know a good book about Pancho Villa. I actually probably have a book on Pershing in there, but he's, General Pershing, Blackjack Pershing, is involved in that chase of Pancho Villa as well. But yeah, so lots of exciting things going on. There was a big gathering yesterday, there at the museum. I spoke at one, the first one.
Yes, you did.
Several years ago. I don't exactly remember
That was
when.
our sixth one. It would have been in 2020.
In 2020. One of the few things I got to do in 2020.
Uh-huh.
A lot of things were shut down in 2020. And if you ever get a chance, like I said earlier, go visit the museum, go to the annual pilgrimage, take your kids. Tons of great artifacts there,
Yes.
in Columbia, Tennessee. And I enjoyed my visit. I've now been twice. Enjoyed my visit last September. I got a personalized tour, and it was great, really great.
Well, it was an honor to have you there and have you speak. And when you were at the first pilgrimage, when we were talking about this, who do we need? Well, your name rose to the top, and when you said that you would be willing to do it, that was flattering because we consider you our historian, our
Oh,
SC historian.
well, thank you.
And we go to you for information such as this. And you did it right there at the Jeff Davis statue because
Yep.
that's the day we dedicated the Jeff Davis statue,
Yep.
October 3rd of 2020.
Really
And
good.
you were the keynote. Yes.
Really good. I didn't see any books popped up, but Jason Lloyd talks about the, Poncho and Lefty song by Merle
Yes.
Haggard and Willie Nelson. I'll probably have to sing that later tonight. I won't make y'all suffer, with me singing. But yeah, that is an absolutely great song.
Yes. And that goes to tell you how far our history travels
Yes.
because you have a gentleman that was born, his daddy was born in Mississippi. He was born in Mississippi. His father fought for the Confederacy. Some of them fought for the Federals. And then all of a sudden they are in, if you want to call it the Spanish-American War, which I hear it referred to a lot that way, and chasing Pancho Villa. And you see that our history, it's very detailed and it is very widespread.
It is.
And that's what makes it so interesting. You find out because all of this together, you find out that men survived this war and they had children and their children fought in this and their children did this. And our history is, and there's not just one piece of history for me. It's people think, well, and I'm not saying anything bad about it, but there's some people who think that the war, history is 1860 through 1865. And the history is a lot more than that.
Yes.
Just the details of these men that their descendants served in World War One and were doctors and were part of the Shelby County Medical Society. So that's a piece of history in itself.
It is. And we all need to work really hard on capturing these little pieces of history so they get presented to future generations. And I know that is something I say all the time. But, no matter where you live, and I know there are folks on here from all over, at least the eastern half of the United States this evening, there is great history in the community you live in. It is deep. It is fascinating. And I try not to pester Elizabeth too much, but as I'm sitting down here and working and she's at the college working, I keep this running monologue with her, and I will send her notes going, "You're not going to believe this." And, "You're not going to believe what I just found." And I send her a note, and it's it's amazing how deep our history is. It really is. So John, please says, I remember Indy riding with Pancho Villa in the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Do you have reverb on your headphones?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not so sure why we started doing that.
Well, I was looking also on here on the chat, and I see where John McLeese asked, was one of those lost historic markers in memory of Forrest's grandson who perished in World War II. And we do have that headstone. We have the headstone for Nathan Bedford Forrest III. He was a general of World War II that was killed, and we have his headstone. So now I can't say if there was a historical sign or marker for him. If it was, we don't have it, but we do have his memorial stone. He is not buried there. He's buried in France, but we have his memorial stone that was put in Forest Park in Memphis. And it was Nathan Bedford Forrest III. And I want to say that he was a pilot. Mr. Hardy might be looking him up at this moment.
No, but we can do that.
Oh, okay. I just saw that you went on, and screen popped up. Yes, but
I was
there
having
might have been
technical issues with this reverb.
Okay.
I don't know. Now it's not doing it.
Okay.
He was a brigadier general in the United States Army Air Forces. He's the first American general to be killed in action in the European theater of the war. He was shot down in a raid over Nazi Germany in June of 1943. So according to one site, he did not have any children, making him the final Forrest heir.
Yes.
So
he was the last one to carry the Forrest name. He still has great grandchildren because we're working with them and putting the equestrian plaza.
So he was in a B-17 when he was shot down as well. The Memphis Belle that we talked about earlier was a B-17.
Yes.
So according to this, he's actually was reinterred at Arlington National Cemetery on November 15th of 1949.
Okay. Yes.
So yeah, just amazing little pieces of history. And I encourage y'all to get out and explore them. I will say about those other markers, Jason, that you recall, we should dig around and see if we can find a photograph of that park with those markers. That would be a nice thing to have. You never know what kind of images are going to come up out there, and it's just amazing things to find. I had been searching for an image. I don't know why it's doing that either. Of the Vance Monument in Asheville, which is not there anymore, but there were 2 Spanish American War cannons that were placed by that monument. I imagine they were eventually scrapped after at some point, World War I or World War II. In one of the National History Day documentaries I was judging yesterday, this young contestant had a picture of the Vance Monument with one of those cannons. And so now I'm on the hunt because I looked for a long time. I did an article called All Things Vance, where we talked about all things related to Zebulon Baird Vance. I have tons of pictures of the Vance Monument, which unfortunately is not there and was not preserved. But I didn't have a good picture of that cannon. And so now I know there's a good picture of that cannon. And I unfortunately was not in a position yesterday where I could say, oh, wait, what was that? Because I was working with middle school students and that probably would not have went very well. But at least I know there is a good picture of that memorial with at least one of the Spanish American War cannons in front of it. So I encourage folks to get out and root around and look at old pictures, and you will discover a lot of things that are not there anymore. I had this image the other day of the North Carolina Monument at Gettysburg, and it's a postcard, and there is actually a plaque with information on it that's not there anymore in this postcard, standard cast iron plaque. And so I've been asking people, hey, do you know anything about this? What happened to it? Where did it go? And so far, I've not got a lot. I've not asked the right person yet. And so we'll just have to figure that out as we go along. Folks, if you got anything else you'd like to chat about this evening, drop a note in the box. Jason, anything else you want to chat about this evening?
Well, I would like to thank you for allowing me to come on the show.
Yeah, anytime.
As you know, I've watched this for many years now, and you really are the flagship show for all of the other ones.
Right.
You were Davy Crockett. You put a path through the wilderness for all of us to follow. And want to thank you for all the work that you have done. And you have been a great inspiration to a great many people out there that say, and as like you said, all history is local history, and work to preserve your history and work to preserve your local history, because I can tell the things that happened here in Mount Pleasant, but I can't tell the things that happened in your hometown.
Right.
I was looking through several sites to see what all has gone out of Shelby County, and they were listing these homes, a lot of them built in the 1880s all the way up to the 1920s, and they're gone. Well, now they would be 100-year-old house or better.
Mm-hmm.
And they were some beautiful structures. Mm-hmm. But I can say the same thing here about Middle Tennessee. All of the homes that we have lost here just to development. Beautiful homes, old homes, and next thing you know, they're taken down for development, and there's historical significance.
Yes.
Families that develop these small towns, and they generally starts once these small towns start with just a family, 2 families, 3 families, and these are the founding members. And then 100, 200 years later, all of that history is gone. You hate to see that happen, but somebody's got to tell that local story.
That's right.
And all of us let's tell the story of what happened around us over, because Mount Pleasant was really coming to development around 1803, 1804 was when European settlers started moving in here at that time. So we've got 220 years of history that we can
Mm-hmm.
tell.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the history we need to be telling.
That is the history we need telling. Jason Lloyd asked a question about the Confederate monuments that were on Capitol Square in Raleigh. Of course, they were taken down in 2020. The monuments themselves are in storage. I know that the 2 cannons that were by the Confederate monument in Raleigh originally were at Fort Caswell during the war, and they have been moved to Fort Fisher. So they are on display at Fort Fisher. But the monuments themselves are in a, we'll say, undisclosed county storage lot there in Raleigh. Will we ever see them again? I would hope that they would be put back up, but we need to just work on educating people. We'll leave that right there. John wants to know if the plaque, I assume, at Gettysburg was stolen. Have I checked newspaper records? No, I haven't dug outside of asking a couple of people. I've not dug any deeper into that. If you go to like newspapers.com and type in Gettysburg marker, you're going to pull up 100,000 hits because there are a lot of markers at Gettysburg. So I'm going to send a note to some Park Service employees, and unfortunately, none of the parks, there are only 2 left that have historians on staff anymore. All of the historians for the National Park Service site, at least the Civil War sites, have retired and not been replaced. So there are only 2 left, the one at Appomattox and the one at Chickamauga, Chattanooga. And once they retire, they'll probably not be replaced either. That's unfortunate, but it's just those little mysteries. And I get online and I search these little things out and find things that make me want to go, huh, never heard of that, or never seen that, or I'll be darned, just have one of those conversations. So John, I'm going to continue to work on that little postcard and see if I can find a better image of it. And Jason Lloyd, can't say if we'll ever see those North Carolina monuments again. I would hope, but maybe one day. All right, folks, I don't see any other questions in the box. I am going to say thank you very much to my friend Jason Boshers for coming online tonight, hanging out in the library. I wish you were here in person because we could sit over there and chat for hours and hours and look at books and all kinds of cool things. But maybe one day we'll get you over here in the mountains of Western North Carolina. And once again, folks, please get out, continue to dig, especially into your local history, and talk to people. Tell those stories, because if we're not telling those stories, they're probably not getting told. So, Jason, thank you very much. As always, everybody have a great evening, and God bless.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.